You've seen them everywhere. The YouTube thumbnails, the Instagram reels, smiling retirees on sun-drenched beaches, cold drinks in hand, telling you how they live like royalty on $1,500 a month. The guru with perfect teeth shows you a spacious apartment for $800, a meal for $3, and promises you can start a new life tomorrow. Here's the thing, they're not lying. Not exactly. But they're not telling you the whole story either. I'm about to share 5 brutal truths about retiring overseas that Americans never hear until it's too late. And if you're thinking about making this move, you need to hear every single one of them before you sell your house, liquidate your 401k, or buy that one-way ticket. Because the difference between a dream retirement abroad and a complete disaster often comes down to information nobody wants to talk about. Let's be honest about why you're watching this video. The American middle class is collapsing. What used to be a comfortable retirement now feels like a fantasy. Social Security barely covers rent in most US cities. Healthcare costs are spiraling out of control. The retirement crisis isn't coming. It's already here. A recent study found that nearly half of Americans have less than $10,000 saved for retirement. Half. And if you're one of the millions sitting there thinking, there has to be another way, you're absolutely right to explore your options. Moving overseas can work. It does work for thousands of Americans every year. But here's what I need you to understand. I'm not here to kill your dream. I'm here to stop you from walking into a nightmare. Because the stories you don't hear, the ones that don't make it into those glossy Instagram posts, are the ones that matter most. So let's talk about what actually happens when Americans retire abroad. Not the highlight reel. The full picture. Brutal truth number 1, the healthcare gamble. Let's start with the big one. Healthcare. The myth goes like this. Healthcare overseas is cheap, high quality, and readily available. You'll pay $30 for a doctor visit, $50 for dental work, and live like you've got premium insurance without the premium. And you know what? In some places, for some people, for some amount of time, that's absolutely true. But here's the reality nobody mentions. What happens when things go wrong? Picture this, you're 68 years old, living in a beautiful colonial city. You've been healthy your whole life. 6 months into your new retirement paradise, you have a stroke, or you need emergency surgery, or you're diagnosed with cancer. Suddenly, that cheap healthcare system doesn't look so appealing anymore. The local hospital might not have the specialists you need. The equipment might be outdated. The English-speaking doctors you relied on, they refer you to the capital city, 3 hours away, where nobody speaks English at all. And here's the part that really hurts. Medicare doesn't work overseas. Read that again. Your Medicare coverage, the thing you paid into your entire working life, is worthless the moment you leave US borders. Some countries have phenomenal healthcare systems, but having access to that system and being able to navigate it during a medical emergency are two completely different things. When you're in pain, scared, and trying to communicate complex medical history through a translation app, those $30 doctor visits don't mean much. I'm not saying don't go, I'm saying understand what you're gambling with. How to deal with this. Get international health insurance before you move, not after. Budget $200 to $500 per month per person, more if you're over 60 or have pre-existing conditions. Research medical evacuation coverage. And here's the crucial part. Identify the best hospitals in your target country and make sure you're within reasonable distance of them. Visit those facilities in person during your test run. Talk to expats who've actually used the healthcare system, not just the ones who've been lucky enough to stay healthy. Brutal truth number 2, visa roulette. The Instagram gurus make visas sound simple. Just show $2,000 in monthly income and you're approved. They wave their residency cards at the camera like golden tickets. What they don't show you is the rejection letter, the sudden policy change. The moment you realize you've built a life somewhere, you're no longer legally allowed to stay. Here's what actually happens. Countries change visa rules constantly. What was true 6 months ago when you started planning might not be true today. That retirement visa that required $1,500 in monthly income, now it's $2,500. The property purchase that guaranteed residency, the program just ended. The lawyer who promised to handle everything, he took your money and disappeared. I know someone, let's call him Robert, who sold his house in Florida, shipped his belongings, and moved to Southeast Asia on what he thought was a solid retirement visa. 14 months in, the government changed the financial requirements. He didn't qualify anymore. He had 30 days to leave the country or face deportation. Robert had already established a life there. He had a routine, friends, a girlfriend. He'd invested in furniture, a motorbike, language lessons, all of it gone in 30 days because of a policy change announced with zero warning. And it gets worse. Some countries are specifically targeting foreign retirees with new restrictions. They're raising income requirements, adding health insurance mandates, or creating so much bureaucratic red tape that it becomes nearly impossible to stay legal. How to deal with this? Never ever move to a country on a tourist visa hoping to figure it out later. That's a disaster waiting to happen. Before you commit to any destination, join expat forums and Facebook groups to get real-time updates on visa situations. Consult with an immigration lawyer, a real one, not just some guy in an expat bar who knows the system. Have a backup plan. Always. Know which countries you could move to if your first choice falls through, and keep enough money liquid to relocate if you have to. Don't sink every dollar you have into a place you might be forced to leave. Number 3, the loneliness no one warns you about. This is the one that breaks people. The retirement blogs show you making friends at beach bars, learning to cook local cuisine with your neighbors, becoming part of a vibrant community. It looks effortless. The reality? You're a 65-year-old American in a country where you don't speak the language fluently, you don't understand the cultural nuances, and most people see you as a walking ATM, not a potential friend. You miss your grandkids' birthdays. You FaceTime, but the time difference makes it complicated. Your daughter needs help with something, and you're 6,000 miles away. Your friends back home stop calling because you're living the dream, and they don't want to burden you with their problems. And the expat community? It's not always the welcoming group the influencers describe. It can be cliquish, full of drama, or worse, populated by people running away from something rather than running towards something. You quickly realize that just because someone else is American doesn't mean you want to be friends with them. I've seen this destroy people. Strong, independent individuals who thought they were adventurous and adaptable, sitting alone in their apartment at 7 p.m., realizing they haven't had a meaningful conversation with another human being in 3 weeks. Depression hits hard in these situations. You're dealing with culture shock, language barriers, and the slow realization that you might have made a terrible mistake, but you've already burned your bridges back home. You sold your house, you told everyone about your big adventure, and now admitting it's not working feels like complete failure. Here's something nobody talks about. You lose your cultural context. The jokes don't land. The references don't make sense. You can't participate in conversations about local politics, sports, or entertainment because you're fundamentally outside the culture. You become invisible in your own life. How to deal with this? This is why you don't move permanently right away. Spend 3 to 6 months in your target country first, not as a tourist. Actually live there. Cook your own meals, do your laundry, handle your own problems. See what it feels like when the novelty wears off. Join expat communities before you move, not after. Get on those Facebook groups, Reddit forums, and local meetup sites. Start building connections while you're still in the planning phase. And be brutally honest with yourself about your social needs. If you're someone who needs regular, deep connections with people who share your background and language, retiring to a country where you'll be a permanent outsider might not be the right move, no matter how cheap the rent is. Brutal truth number 4. The money doesn't work the way they say. Let's talk about the famous $1,500 a month retirement. Yes, rent might be $800. Local meals might be $3. A beer at the corner shop might cost $1. But here's what they don't include in those calculations. You're not eating local food 3 times a day, every day, forever. You're going to want peanut butter, real cheese, coffee that tastes like coffee, Those imported goods, expensive, really expensive. That $3 meal becomes $15 when you need comfort food from home. You're flying back to the US at least once a year. Probably more if you have grandkids or aging parents. That's $800 to $1,500 per trip, minimum each time. Your US bills don't disappear. You've still got student loans for your kids, maybe a storage unit, cell phone, streaming services, Amazon shipments to your friend's house, because half the stuff you need isn't available where you are. The exchange rate fluctuates. That $1,500 bought a lot more when the dollar was strong. When it weakens, your fixed income suddenly doesn't stretch as far. Prices in your host country don't care about your social security check. Local inflation is real and often brutal. What cost $800 in rent this year might be $1,100 next year. Countries that are cheap have a tendency to get expensive fast as more foreigners discover them. Then there are the unexpected costs. Your laptop dies, your phone gets stolen, you need new glasses, the apartment's hot water heater breaks and you're responsible for it. These aren't emergencies in the US. They're Tuesday. Overseas, they can be financial catastrophes if you're living on that imaginary $1,500 budget. And let's talk about something nobody wants to mention. You're a foreigner. The foreigner price is real. You'll get charged more for everything from taxis to apartments to repairs. Some locals see you as rich by default. They're not wrong. Even broke Americans are wealthy compared to much of the world. But it means you're constantly getting quoted higher prices. How to deal with this? Use real data. Go to numbeo.com and look at actual cost of living information for your target city, not just the country. Add 30% to whatever budget the YouTube gurus tell you. Seriously, if they say $1,500, budget $2,000. If they say $2,000, plan for $2,600. Track every expense during your test period abroad. Every coffee, every taxi, every load of laundry. You'll be shocked at how fast it adds up. Keep a currency cushion in case exchange rates turn against you. And maintain ties to the US banking system. You'll need it for when things go wrong. Number 5, the scams are everywhere and target you specifically. Here's an uncomfortable truth. The moment you announce you're retiring overseas, you become a target. The scammers come in all forms. The helpful local who offers to show you apartments and collects kickbacks from every landlord. The lawyer who charges you $3,000 for visa paperwork you could have done yourself for $200. The property developer selling you a can't-miss investment in a building that will never be completed. But the worst scams come from people you think you can trust. Other expats. These are Americans or Europeans who've been in-country longer than you. They speak the language. They know the system. They offer to help. For a fee, of course. They'll connect you with the right people, handle your paperwork, set up your utilities, translate for you. Some are legitimate, many are not. I've heard horror stories about expats running entire schemes on newcomers. They'll help you open a bank account and get added as a signatory temporarily, then drain the account. They'll offer to accept package deliveries for you and keep the contents. They'll introduce you to a great lawyer, who's actually their cousin splitting the overcharge with them. Then, there are the romance scams targeting single retirees. You're lonely, vulnerable, in a new place, and someone attractive pays attention to you. Eventually they need money. For their sick mother, for their business, for an emergency. You send it because you're in love and want to help. The money disappears. Often, so do they. The property scams are particularly devastating. You buy a house or condo, but the title work wasn't done properly. Or it's in a zone where foreigners can't actually own property. Or the person who sold it to you didn't actually own it. You've invested your life savings into something you don't legally own, and by the time you figure it out, getting that money back is impossible. How to deal with this? Trust no one at first, especially people who seem too eager to help. Do your own research, hire professionals with verifiable credentials and independent reviews, not someone's buddy. Never let anyone become a signatory on your bank accounts. Never send money to people you've met recently, no matter how compelling the story. Use escrow for any buffer. Add 20 to 30% on top of everything else. Property transactions. Get multiple quotes for everything. If someone's advice is free, ask yourself why they're offering it. And always get a second opinion from someone who has no connection to the first person. The expat who's been there 5 years might seem knowledgeable, but they might also be running a side hustle scamming newcomers. Look, I know, I've just thrown a lot of harsh reality at you, and maybe you're sitting there thinking, this sounds terrible. Why would anyone do this? But here's the thing. Thousands of Americans successfully retire overseas every year. They're living good lives, stretching their retirement dollars, experiencing new cultures, and genuinely thriving. The difference between them and the people who fail isn't luck. It's preparation. So if you're still serious about this, and I mean truly serious, not just escape fantasy serious, here's how you do it the smart way. Step 1. Test before you commit. This is non-negotiable. You need to spend 1 to 3 months living in your target location before you make any permanent moves. Not a vacation. Not staying in a nice Airbnb in the tourist district. Actually living there. Rent an apartment in a regular neighborhood. Shop at local grocery stores. Cook your own meals. Handle your own problems when the Wi-Fi goes out or the power cuts off. Navigate the bus system. Go to a doctor's appointment. Open a local bank account if possible. Do this during the off-season, not just during the beautiful weather months. If you're thinking about somewhere with a monsoon season or brutally hot summers, experience that. You need to know what normal feels like, not just what vacation feels like. Pay attention to how you feel after week 3. That's when the novelty wears off and reality sets in. Are you still excited, or are you counting the days until you can go home? Be honest with yourself, and do this test run while you still have your safety net. Don't sell your house first. Don't liquidate everything. Don't burn your bridges. You're testing, not committing. Step 2. Join communities before you go. Start building your network while you're still in the planning phase. Get on Facebook groups for expats in your target city. Join Reddit communities. Find forums dedicated to retirees abroad. But don't just lurk. Participate. Ask questions. Read the archives. You'll learn things you'd never find in a blog post. You'll hear about the visa changes before they're official. You'll get warned about the scams. You'll find out which neighborhoods to avoid, which lawyers are trustworthy, and which health insurance actually pays claims. These communities can be invaluable, but you need to develop the skill of filtering information. Some people complain about everything. Others are relentlessly positive, even when things are falling apart. You're looking for the people in the middle, the ones who give balanced, realistic assessments. When you find helpful people, build relationships with them before you move. Show up in the community as someone who contributes, not just someone who takes. Answer questions when you can. Share what you learn. The connections you make now will be your lifeline when you arrive. Step 3. Budget using real data. Stop looking at those live in paradise for $1,000 a month articles. They're either outdated, misleading, or describing a lifestyle you won't actually want to live. Go to Numbeo.com and look at real cost of living data for your specific city. Not to the country, the city. Costs vary wildly even within the same nation. Then create a real budget with these categories, housing, and remember you'll probably pay more than locals do. Food, both local and imported items you can't live without. Utilities, and factor in that you might run AC or heating more than locals do. Transportation, taxis, bus fare, occasional car rentals, healthcare, insurance premiums plus out-of-pocket costs. Entertainment, you're retired, you'll want things to do. Flights home, at least once a year, probably more. Visa costs and renewals, these add up. Emergency fund, because things will go wrong. If your social security check doesn't comfortably cover this real budget, you need to either choose a cheaper location or reconsider the whole plan. Arriving somewhere with barely enough money is a recipe for disaster. You need cushion, you need options, you need the ability to leave if things don't work out. Track everything during your test period, every single expense. You'll be amazed at how much reality diverges from those blogger budgets. Use that data to adjust your planning. Step 4. Keep your exit strategy ready. This is crucial and often overlooked. Never put yourself in a position where you can't leave if you need to. Keep enough money liquid to buy a plane ticket, ship your essentials, and get re-established somewhere else. Don't tie up every dollar in property, local investments, or belongings you can't easily liquidate. Maintain your U.S. ties. Keep a U.S. bank account. Keep your US credit cards active. Keep a US address, even if it's just a mail forwarding service or a family member's house. You might need these things, and rebuilding them from overseas is nearly impossible. Have a backup country in mind. If your first choice doesn't work out, where could you go? What are the visa requirements? What does the cost of living look like? Don't put all your hopes into one destination. And here's the hardest part. Give yourself permission to change your mind. If you move overseas and it's not working, that's not failure. That's learning. Coming back to the US doesn't mean you wasted time or made a mistake. It means you were brave enough to try something and wise enough to adjust when the situation changed. The worst thing you can do is stay somewhere you're miserable just because you're too proud or too broke to leave. Don't let that be you. Let me be crystal clear about something. Retiring overseas is not an escape from your problems. It's a different set of problems. If you're unhappy in the US because you don't have a social life, moving to a country where you don't speak the language won't fix that. It'll make it worse. If you're bad with money in America, you'll be bad with money abroad. Except now, you'll also be dealing with exchange rates and inflation you don't understand. If you're running from something instead of running towards something, you'll take your problems with you. They'll just have a different backdrop. But if you're doing this for the right reasons, because you're genuinely curious about other cultures, because you want to challenge yourself, because you've done the math and know you can't afford retirement in the US, or because you've always wanted to experience life from a different perspective, then this can be an incredible chapter of your life. Just go in with your eyes open. If you're still serious about escaping America after hearing all of this, your next move is crucial. You need to understand not just the problems with retiring overseas, but also the specific opportunities that actually exist. You need to know which countries are actively creating pathways for American retirees, what their visa requirements really look like, and how other Americans are making this work right now. Because despite everything I've shared today, there are places where this dream can become reality if you approach it the right way, with the right information. The difference between success and failure often comes down to choosing the right destination for your specific situation. What works for someone else might be a disaster for you, and vice versa. Don't make this decision based on a beautiful photo or a guru's sales pitch. Make it based on real information, careful research, and honest self-assessment. You've made it this far in the video, which tells me you're serious about this. You're not looking for fairy tales, you're looking for truth. And that's exactly the mindset you need to make this work. Your next step is to dig deeper into the specific countries and opportunities available to you, armed with the realistic perspective you now have. Because while the path isn't as simple as the Instagram post suggests, it's not impossible either. It just requires you to be smarter, more prepared, and more honest with yourself than the gurus want you to be. Good luck out there. And whatever you decide, make sure it's based on reality, not fantasy.